Last night, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens had a debate. It was a fiery one. The media characterized it in an interesting way, which we'll get to in a second. But this appears to be a race really between Israel and America. Who's gonna win that Michigan Senate seat? So let's find out. Anna's got the facts.
Well, look, I want to provide evidence for why you framed it that way, Cenk. So why don't we immediately, right off the bat, before we even get into the debate itself, give you a little taste of who Haley Stevens is. Take a look.
In the United States Congress, I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future, and I know that Israel will continue to exist for the Jewish people.
Israel comes to you in your dreams? I'd be a little concerned about that. Let's go to the final graphic here, graphic 9. Wow, she's taken quite a bit of money from the Israel lobby, pro-Israel PACs, almost $30.5 million.
No, it's actually much bigger than that.
How is it much bigger than that?
No, because before this race, she'd already taken $20 million. Remember how she's the one who defeated Andy Levin. Andy Levin is a Zionist actually, but said, hey, I think the Palestinians should also get a state, and AIPAC was furious.
Is Israel not coming to his dreams?
Apparently didn't, and he loves Israel, but he's like, but I love the Palestinians too, they should have a state. And AIPAC was furious, how dare you treat Palestinians as humans? So they gave Haley Stevens a ton of money to defeat a Jewish American congressman who dared to say that the Palestinians should be treated equally. So then in this race, the AIPAC has put in 30 million that is trackable, and there's another 30 million that is not trackable, that is almost certainly the Israeli lobby. So that's 60 million in this race. She had 20 million earlier. She might have gotten an astounding, record-breaking $80 million from the Israeli lobby. To be fair, if somebody gave me $80 million, they might come to me in my dreams too.
There is no amount of money I could ever get from the Israel lobby to get me to support Israel, literally. I could be destitute, I wouldn't take the money. I just couldn't. Anyway, let's get back to the story, the topic at hand. So now the debate just took place between Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens. This is the Democratic primary for Michigan Senate seat. And according to the audience, it looks like El-Sayed hammered Stevens. So according to local media to Detroit, which hosted the debate and then polled their audience after, who won the debate? Only 5% said that Haley Stevens did, 95% said that El-Sayed did.
So this is what's amazing. Look, this is a part of the story here, because without the media's help, Haley Stevens would have a 0% chance of winning, okay? But I read the New York Times description of the debate, and you could tell from even their description that it was like begrudgingly that clear that Abdul El-Sayed had crushed her. But instead of saying that, they said that Abdul El-Sayed was a smooth talker.
Oh, a smooth operator.
Okay, so you take his strength of being excellent at debating and being right about the issues, and you turn it into an insult, a smooth talker. And they said that he attacked not Israel, but the Jewish state.
Come on.
Framing it as like, oh, here's a smooth talker, anti-Semite attacking poor Haley Stevens, who's only gotten $30 to $80 million from the Israeli lobby. I mean, so the bias of national media is astounding and over the top.
I mean, in this case, it's local media. So
no, local media has them winning when they actually ask their readers. They're 95 to 5. But when you read the New York Times,
got it. You're juxtaposing the coverage. Got it.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so with that in mind, let's actually get into the substance of the debate. And since it was carried on local news, we are unable to show you clips. We're just going to have to give you summaries, and they're worthy of talking about. So we'll summarize their pitch to Michigan voters with one brief quote from their opening statements. So El-Sayed, what did he say? The race is about you deserving a politics that's not bought off by the same corporations picking your pocket at every single turn. I'm looking forward to the conversation about how we get money out of politics.
Teach it.
Put money in your pockets.
Preach it.
And pass Medicare for all.
Hear, hear.
So Stevens had a bit of a different opening statement. She said Michigan deserves a senator who can win and who can deliver. I am the only one on this stage who has flipped a Republican seat, and I was named Michigan's most effective Democratic lawmaker in Congress because my only focus is you. So there's no specified policy proposal there, nothing about her values. It's more of the same corporate Democrat nonsense about like, you have to vote for me because I'm the only one who can win.
Yeah, just like Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris. How many times have we heard this garbage? And when a populist is much more likely to win that race than an establishment clown who takes nothing but corporate PAC money and foreign government money. And she's like, oh, and other Democratic lawmakers in Congress like me more. Well, of course they do, because they're nearly as corrupt as you are. I mean, to be fair, you're probably the most corrupt in Congress. That's probably why you won the award.
So Stevens also resorted to personal attacks on El-Sayed while claiming that she's the most electable candidate. Now, look, I'm biased because I'm known to maybe do personal attacks here and there, but there's also substance to my arguments. I don't just like use ad hominems and that's it, but sometimes you gotta call a moron. But in this case, no substance, just personal attacks. So she says Abdul is running for celebrity. Republicans are propping up his campaign.
What?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there are Republicans lined up around the block to share their talking points about how much they want Abdul El-Sayed to win the Democratic primary for the Michigan Senate seat.
If that was true, he would get $60 million in funding instead of you. Second of all, if you mean Republican voters are propping him up, well, that means he's more likely to win the general election.
Fair.
So which one is it?
So she says, this isn't about the DC or New York influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and I've got the receipts to do that, which is why Governor Whitmer, Gretchen Whitmer, and so many others are joining my campaign to win in November.
No, they're joining your campaign because they also got money from the Israeli lobby.
Remember when Gretchen Whitmer visited Trump in the White House soon after he got elected for his second term, and she was so terrified of being photographed in the meeting and like literally did this with a binder?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who Gretchen Whitmer is. So I don't know if it's really.
And by the way, throughout this campaign, she was doing this until the Israeli lobby was like, hey, we need you to get out from, and she's like, I love Israel.
Give me another 10 mil.
I'll vote for Haley Stevens.
All right, so she also says, my opponent is on these big podcasts. He's running a podcast himself. These folks are making fun of the way I sound, but yet I sound like the people who need help.
Well, that's true, you do need help. You do sound like it.
Who are talking to me about what they need done. Sounds like she's a little jelly about the podcast crowd.
Can I just real quick there again? So she's trying to take every advantage that he has and turn it into a negative, just like the New York Times did. He's great at making a case for his voters. He's a smooth talker. In her case, she's like, oh, he does all these podcasts. Why does he do the podcasts? So he can actually convince people to vote for the Democratic Party, to vote for him, to win them over, right? She doesn't do any podcasts or interviews because she can't defend her positions. The minute they ask her, wait, it looks like you're totally bribed by a foreign government, she has no answer, so she hides in a cave and she's like, oh yeah, he's doing all these podcasts and he's like a celebrity. No, he's answering people's questions and you aren't.
Does that mean that he'd have a better chance at winning a Senate seat?
Exactly, you know what? If you do a ton of interviews, that's called free media. That is worth millions of dollars. It's much better than the ads because you're inside the content. But Haley Stevens can't defend a single position she has. That's why she never does any interviews. Instead, she gets money from the Israeli lobby and runs all those ads.
She says, I know it's great to host rallies and have these people. Yeah, and have these fun events, but everywhere I have gone in Michigan, I have taken the time to visit a minority-owned.
No, yeah. So, okay, if you didn't see our earlier coverage of this, AIPAC doesn't run ads saying, if you love Israel, vote for Haley Stevens, because then she'd get like 2% of the vote, right? Instead, they run ads saying, Abdul El-Sayed is fill in the blank, sexist, racist, blah, 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 right? And one of the main ads that they're running is Barack Obama from 8 years ago on some random issue saying, hey, Haley Stevens did a good job on that, whether she did or didn't.
I've seen it, it's so funny.
Right, so, and they're running that in in heavily black districts. Obama's on Haley Stevens' side. Obama's on Haley Stevens' side. And you know what? I secretly, we have no proof of this, and you can't see me in public, but I'm secretly meeting with minority-owned businesses. Okay, if you say so, but all of that is to say, please, black people, be tricked into voting for me.
I feel like she is real envious of how popular he is. Like, you're giving him grief over hosting rallies during a political campaign? Aren't you supposed to do that? You're supposed to do that, right?
You're supposed to interact with the people. You're supposed to tell them what your positions are. And she's somehow trying to make it a negative. Look, if the money was reversed, he's now being outspent. It was 20 to 1, now it's closer to 40 to 1. Jeez. Okay, imagine if that was reversed. This election would be 90-10. It wouldn't even be close.
So, by the way, Stevens did keep bringing up the fact that she was endorsed by Gretchen Whitmer throughout the debate. And at one point, she did concede that El-Sayed is a great guy and a great father.
Oh.
But about 2 sentences later, she tried to insinuate that he has a record of, it's the favorite for the corporate Democrats, attacking women.
It's a 100% lie.
Yeah.
The AIPAC ran an ad like that, 4 different points, each one of them utterly debunked, but they don't care if it's true. Because politics isn't about what's true. Why do you think money in politics matters so much? Because it creates the ads that lie to the voters to try to get them to vote for the wrong person on purpose. And here's this person, and she is pretending to be aggrieved because Abdul El-Sayed called Fetterman an ogre. Way to go, brother. Totally right.
Based?
Yeah.
What are we supposed to say? He's a supermodel?
Right. No. And he's referring to his policies, et cetera. But I don't care either way. Yeah. She then pretends that he's calling her an ogre. And she says, oh, I'm taking so much offense at these attacks. They're personal attacks. And then she's like, he's a sexist, he's a racist, he's a podcaster, he's a celebrity. Everything's a personal attack. What's wrong with his positions? Tell us why we need to go die for Israel in this war. Tell us why we need to give Israel another $300 billion. Tell us why we need to have the drug companies be so powerful that we can't even negotiate drug prices, that we killed off the free markets to help your donors. Well, you can't make any of those cases. So that's why you pretend to be aggrieved, but you actually do the personal attacks. And she knows that the New York Times and Alden Ash and Jake Tapper, and this is literal, every time Abdul goes on CNN, they viciously attack him with nothing but smears. She knows the national media is gonna be 100% on her side, and they're gonna pick up the ball and run with that same exact talking points.
Okay, they are gonna do that. And so my question is, when the Democratic establishment inevitably does to El-Sayed what they did to Grant Plattner, is everyone just gonna believe it with no evidence?
Yeah,
because it's gonna happen.
No, but it's gonna
happen. So are you just gonna believe it and immediately be worried about self-preservation and be like, I'm sorry, okay. What happened to Plattner was disgusting.
So look, there's 2 different things. There's getting targeted, and then there's, did you do something wrong or not? If they dug enough, could you find something? A lot of people now believe that Plattner did do something, that they dug enough to find something wrong that he did. Whether you believe that or you don't believe that, at this point is immaterial because he's out of the race, right? But the part that's important is, if you're Haley Stevens, the national media never digs in. They don't even scratch the surface. They don't even say, oh, by the way, she's taken $80 million from a foreign government's lobby. That should be a note of concern.
Right.
They never add, it should be a note of concern, right? So not even scratching the surface. But with Abdul, they're digging and digging and digging. But the good news is they found nothing. And then AIPAC's running the ads anyway.
No, but that's the thing, Cenk. What's gonna stop? They found nothing, okay, but what's gonna stop them from just making things up?
Yeah, well, they did.
What's gonna stop them from just making things up, hitting up a political reporter who, in a very misleading way, writes about a story about that gives the reader the impression that a rape victim reached out to her therapist at the time that she was allegedly raped. That's the way that it was written. It gave you that false impression.
No, I know. No matter what you think of Grant Plattner and what he might or might not have done, that was a hatchet job because the political reporter literally hid the text that he had saying that where she asked him for a butt massage. Okay, and you could have any opinion you want about that, right? Like saying like, oh, who cares, right? But the reporter hiding that shows you the reporter is not objective. The point of that article and the article before that, where the New York Times talked to 12 different girlfriends, only found one that had done anything that said that was complaining, and she was a GOP operative. Again, it's not to go back into that issue. It's to show you there is no question that if you oppose Israel or corporate donors, mainstream media will try to eliminate you. They'll try to assassinate your character. And people like Haley Stevens depend on that.
Yes.
Because if you're talking about the issues, there's no chance Haley Stevens or Susan Collins is gonna win. The only way they could win is if they have tens of millions of dollars from the lobbies, whether it's AIPAC or Big Pharma, et cetera, and have the entire national media on their side.
Right. Okay, so let's get to what El-Sayed had to say during the context of this debate. He said, just this past week, our friend here voted to send $3.3 billion of your tax dollars to a foreign government. That is the status quo, I guess.
Pro quo.
Oh,
that
pro
comes
quo.
with a quid of $30 million spent by AIPAC, meaning that's your quid pro quo.
Yeah, that's and by the way, that's exactly right.
And by the way, again, this is why I get so frustrated. This is such an excellent case of the national media being preposterous liars and covering for Israel and every donor, but particularly Israel in this case. You're telling me that the Israeli lobby spent at a minimum $30 million in this race for the benefit of Americans, Norwegians, our healthcare? No, they spent that money to buy the seat for Israel.
Right.
If any person with any common sense knows that, you're telling me all of the national media reporters couldn't piece that together? I wonder why the Israeli lobby is spending all this money. I can't quite figure it out. Is it for knitting? Is it for race car driving? I can't tell. I can't tell because I'm a reporter and I'm the biggest idiot in the country. They're doing it to buy the seat for Israel. Super obvious, literally the most obvious thing in the world, yet not one national media reporter figured it out. Come on.
He says, if you really want to beat Mike Rogers, find the candidate who is electable without having to ask for a $60 million crutch to do it.
Damn.
I like that line. I like that line a lot.
Yeah.
So Stevens did dodge numerous questions. When confronted about previous votes and statements in support of ICE, she declined to give any substantive answer. I should note El-Sayed wants to abolish ICE, and I don't know how Michigan voters feel about that, but juxtaposing the two on that issue, obviously they're very different. Haley Stevens also refused to give a straight answer when asked about voters' concerns regarding the huge volume of outside spending in this race. And when it comes to the Middle East, Stevens really didn't get specific. She loves to give vague answers and only said that she wants lasting peace and a two-state solution, knowing full well that Israel is 100% against a two-state solution. They do not believe in Palestinian statehood. And in fact, Naftali Bennett, who's running against Netanyahu to be the next prime minister of Israel, just gave an interview where he said, I'm not giving up any territory. I do not believe in a Palestinian state. So that is Israel. That is their culture. That is what they believe. She is funded by pro-Israel interests. So this whole I believe in a two-state solution thing that we hear from corporate Democrats, they love to regurgitate that. They don't actually mean it. And it's important for you to know that.
I can actually prove it empirically and definitively for you. She was literally picked by AIPAC to defeat the idea of a two-state solution, which Representative Andy Levin had suggested.
Amazing.
So the whole point of her existence in Congress is to make sure a two-state solution doesn't happen. Okay, so that is, her lies are record-breaking. And one last thing about the media. When I ran for Congress, all of my money was small dollar donors, right? Didn't take any PAC money at all. And people sending in $5, $10, $20 from across the country, but a lot of people did, right? The national media wrote about that is outside money. Not a lot of it is coming from outside of California. And they wrote article after article about that. Here, and it was nowhere near this amount, right? Here's $60 million coming from outside Michigan to buy this election. They're like, I don't see it. I can't see it at all. What am I, a reporter? No, I don't see the money. It's absurd. It's preposterous. So by the way, we're asking you guys, because after all this, $60 million and the entire national media versus a great candidate who's standing up for the people, it's a close election. It's 50-50. We don't know who's gonna win, okay? So we're asking you guys on tyt.com, who do you think is going to win the Michigan Senate race? A, Israel, B, America. Okay, so there is no question that Haley Stevens is the candidate for Israel and Abdul El-Sayed is the candidate for America. So, but we don't know who's gonna win right now.
Yeah, no idea.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.